Good morning, friends. It's Good Friday. Glad to have you gather with us here online. And throughout the day, we're going to walk through this day and what it meant and what it means and what Jesus did and what he endured on your behalf and on my behalf. And so it's early, before the sunrise. And it would have been early in the morning as Jesus was probably arrested that evening and taken to Caiaphas' house. There stood in the pit that was probably the holding cell, if you will, for Jesus before he's taken to the high priest and brought before the Sanhedrin. We'll read that in Mark chapter 14. I invite you to maybe take a moment and read through the end of Mark 14, beginning in verse 53 to the very end. We'll read a section of that. And today is just, we're inviting you to kind of lean into some scriptures, to pause and reflect and to contemplate what Jesus is going through. At the end of each video, there's going to be a link where you can click and maybe partake of a worship song and just allow that to be another prayerful moment for you. And so as we begin, we catch up with Jesus going before the Sanhedrin. So Mark chapter 14, verses 53 through 65. Here's what we read. They took Jesus to the high priest, to all the chief priests, the elders, the teachers of the law. They came together. Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest. There he sat with the guards, and he warmed himself by the fire. The chief priests, the whole Sanhedrin, were looking for evidence against Jesus so they could put him to death, but they did not find any. Many testified falsely against him, but their statements did not agree. Then some stood up and gave false testimony against him. We heard him say, "I will destroy the temple made by human hands, and in 3 days will build another not made with human hands." Yet even their testimony did not agree. Then the high priest stood up before them and asked Jesus, "Are you going to answer? What are these testimonies of these men that are bringing against you?" But Jesus remained silent and gave no answer. Again, the high priest asked him, "Are you the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed One?" "I am," said Jesus. "And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the Mighty One and coming on the clouds of heaven." The high priest tore his clothes. "Why do we even need any more witnesses?" he asked. "You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?" They all condemned him as worthy of death. Then they began to spit at him. They blindfolded him and struck him with their fist, said, "Prophesy, prophesy." And the guards took him and beat him. So just sit with that for a few seconds. Reflect on what we just read. Have you ever been accused of something? Maybe people pushing back against you. And it's easy to want to defend yourself in those moments. All these accusations, all these testimonies, false testimonies coming against Jesus, and yet he remains silent. He doesn't advocate even for himself in that moment. We see Peter kind of off in the distance. He's one of the few that's followed. Most have deserted him at this point. His followers, his closest friends and people he's poured his life into, they're not there. We understand if you read on in the end of Mark 14, you're going to see what transpires with Peter as people start associating. Peter, aren't you the one who's with him And then he fulfills what Jesus told him. You're going to deny even knowing me 3 times before the rooster crows. And he does. And he weeps and runs off. You ever had people bail on you? In the hardest moment of life, they just jet. They're no longer there. Think about the abandonment of that. Think about the people who you're standing up for who you are. Are you the Son of God? I am. Again, he claims his divinity. He embraces this moment on your behalf and on my behalf. We're really the ones that should be on trial. We're the ones who have committed the sin. We're the ones who have broken, disobeyed, rebelled. Jesus has done none of that. But he's embracing this moment on your behalf and on my behalf. He's the one that is going into Good Friday, knowing the end of the story, but still having to embrace the turmoil and the horror that is to come, as we'll read on today, of all that's going to transpire, all of what's going to take place. But he has you in mind. He has me in mind. And so maybe offer up a prayer of thanksgiving, a prayer of gratitude for all that he endured and will endure for you. As we continue to lean into Good Friday, maybe take a moment and click the link and listen to this worship song and let it invite you into a further moment of prayer. Thanks for being with us today, this Good Friday.